Hello, good evening, and welcome to this edition of MGEVs Community Podcast. We're here to discuss MGEVs, hoping to inform and entertain you for up to an hour. I'm Tom Sedge, T Sedge on the forum. I live in Paynton, Devon, and I'm currently driving the MG4. You can see the picture behind me. And joining us this week are from Wigan in England, returning after a bit of a break, Les Burrows. Welcome, Les.
Hi everybody, hi Tom. My name's Les Burrows, same name on the forum.
Excellent, Les. Are you still driving an MG4 and an MG5?
I am. Still driving, well, I'm
Fantastic.
driving them both, yeah.
Marvellous, thank you. And we have from Inverness, Scotland, David Stewart, returning after a long sabbatical. Hi, Dave. How are you doing?
Hi. Hello, Tom. Hello, guys. Good to be back. Dave Stewart, Dave S on the forum. Currently driving the long range ZS and previously had the short range ZS. So really looking forward to what we're discussing tonight.
Fantastic. Looking forward to hearing your views. And returning from South London, we have Leo Mindell. Welcome, Leo.
Hi there, Tom. Hi, everybody. I'm Leo Mindell. I drive an MG5 facelift. I did have the old one. I changed the facelift recently, and I also have a Cyberster, the GT.
Fantastic. Once again, as ever, we have Miles Roberts from Chorley Group MG in England. Welcome, Miles.
Evening, everyone. Miles Roberts, CG on the forum.
And if the winds favour us, we will also have Vince Williams returning. We'll see if the technology gods allow it this time. Right, guys, today I've got lots to get through. If you're watching live, thank you, and please tell us where you're joining from in the comments window. Please add your questions and comments for the panel and click the like button. If you're watching later, thank you for choosing to watch this video, and please subscribe to get a notification when we go live next time. Many thanks to our premium members, Sloucher, MGBGT2ZS, Very Fat Bloke, Evie Cog, Whiskery, Lagerbaloo, and Big Bear. And if you'd like what we do at MGEVs, please support us by becoming a premium member. Tonight we're going to be saying farewell to the venerable ZS EV with fond memories. Oh yeah, Dave's already crying. And finding out how people have experienced the car, what they've liked about it, what's been good about the Mark 1, the Mark 2. And then we'll be talking and saying hello and welcoming in the MGS5, which is the new replacement. Miles will have lots of facts and figures, and I'm sure you'll have lots of questions, as will our panel. So to get us started, David, you've got and you've had, is it both variants? You said long range and short range. Were they Mark 1 and Mark 2? Or?
Yeah, Mark 1 and Mark 2, yeah. Massive improvement in most things with the Mark 2 long range over the Mark 1. One or two things still irk. One that's really ripping my knitting, to use a good Scottish term, is the passenger seat not being adjustable, height adjustment. I'm 6'2", my wife's not, and it just is a real bugbear. If I was being really picky, I don't think the seats are as comfortable in the Mark II as they were in the Mark I. And I noticed that after a longer journey, I am feeling a little bit more stiff than I did before in the Mark I. But the pluses far outweigh the minuses. The long range, the handling, everything's better. But Les, I'm going to say it, that radio, Shavers, why can you not switch off the radio? So Miles, I've already the wheel loop and I see buttons. I'm quite excited about this. So
there's one on the S5.
So yeah, quite looking forward to this, and I've watched a couple of the videos, and yeah, really keen to see what it was like hands-on, Miles, when you share your thoughts with us.
Great, thank you, Dave. Miles, when did the original Mark 1 ZS EV launch in the UK? Do you remember?
2019. Yeah, 2019.
Okay, so it's getting on for six years ago or so.
Yeah, the original one came out. I mean, obviously, it was based on a ZS Petrol, which was the car that came out in 2017. So, because it was based on a petrol car, it carried over a lot of the look and feel of the petrol car. So that's why it had originally the big grille on the front, although it was blanked out on the EV versions. And it basically, yeah, it looked very, very much like the original ZS petrol. And then with the facelift came, they did away with the front grille and completely, and it ended up with smoother, with the longer range battery available, and up to a 73 kilowatt hour battery on that, and the also the 51 kilowatt hour standard range version with an LFP. What we've seen really is that it's been popular. I mean, the ZS EV has always been priced well. It's always been well supported in terms of finance offers and things. And overall, it's been a very popular car as a private customer's car. And one of the things that they went through some statistics with us at the MG training the other day, and basically, in terms of private sales, MG is second only to Tesla. So, and I think in terms of EV sales, generally, I think they're about third or fourth in the UK. But yeah, in terms of private sales, so people actually spending their own money on it rather than getting it as a company car or fleets buying it, is actually second. And actually, the way that
that's good.
The sale that's for last year. So, so MG is doing very, very well in terms of, I say, with the private market. And one of the reasons for that is obviously it's priced well. It's got good range for what it is. It's a crossover type vehicle, which is popular. And of course, the MG4 has proven extremely popular. And so this MGS5 basically takes that modular scalable platform.
We'll come on to that. But going back to, so when it launched in 2019, was the MG5 already on the market, or was the ZS?
No, the ZS EV was first, and the MG5 came 2020.
Okay, and so Dave, I don't know when you bought it, maybe after that, when you first bought, but what was it? Why did you go for that car specifically?
I wanted to just drive an electric car, just for personal preference. I'd had a look at one or two, and the 160, 180 mile range of the original ZS appealed to me. I actually sat down and worked out how many journeys I actually make in a month or 6 months or whatever. And I thought, right, there's only going to be sort of 3 or 4 where I am really struggling for mileage. Back in the days, it was great because Charge Place Scotland, most of the charging was free. So that appealed to the Scotsman in me. And it was just a good car, good entry price. I went for the top of the range. And I would have got mine in 2020, I think. Yeah, it was during the lockdown, or just as lockdown lifted. Had it for 3 years, but it was the extra range on the long range version that really appealed to me. And I can get down to Edinburgh, Glasgow in a 1 hour. Absolutely no problem. Whereas before, getting down to Edinburgh, Glasgow, I was looking at maybe Stirling I'll need to recharge for Glasgow, somewhere in Fife to recharge. I had too many horrible instances of getting stuck. I've been stuck in the bleak Highlands in the middle of December, 5 miles left in the tank, and 15 miles to go to the next charger. And the long range revision was brilliant. I love that.
So you obviously clearly then went for the, as you say, the long range. So you upgraded.
Mm-hmm.
Was that purely range for you, or the other features that you liked?
Purely range. With being up in Inverness, nearest town on motorway driving is either Aberdeen or Perth. So you've got a fair bit. You've got 100, 110 miles to get to the next sort of big town. Yeah, there's chargers on the way, etc.
And did you look at any alternative makes at that point, or were you? I like what I've got. I just want the better version.
Well, my latest madness was about 9 months, a year ago or so. I was actually looking at a Fisker Ocean, looking to see everybody's face pull a contortion there, and was really, even when things were going quite disastrously for them, a good friend said to me, buy one, because somebody will buy them out and your car will rocket in value and everything will be okay. Thank God, I didn't. And again, it was just because of I think it's claimed to be the most recycled car, environmentally friendly, etc. So that appealed to me. But and a great range. But
Right.
no, I'm pretty loyal to the MG. Quite like it. Had a look round the Peugeot and the Renault. And yeah, I'm slightly interested, but they seem quite expensive in comparison to what you get for an MG and what you get in those versions. So yeah, quite happy where I am.
And Les and Leo, maybe going to come to you, Les, first.
Mhm.
What's your, I know you don't own one, but what's your impression been of the ZS EV? Have you been keeping an eye on how it's been evolving and what have
The
you
new
thought
one.
about it?
The original ZSEV,
The
yeah.
original ones, yeah, the Mark 1 and Mark 2.
Yeah, I looked at one, when was that now? 2020, before I bought the first MG5, I looked at one, had a test drive in it, liked it, was okay, but the range was no good to me, 148 or what it was, 160 odd miles, whatever it was no good to me. So I thought, well, no, I'm not getting into that one. And then I always had estate cars, and I was waiting for an estate to come. I heard rumours that this MG5 was coming, the estate car, and I thought it's never going to happen. And then one day I got a phone call saying it's coming. It's coming. And I thought, right, that's it. I'm waiting now. Well, that's the only experience I've had with the ZS. I've never done anything else with it. Just had a test drive in it. It's a nice car. It's a nice car.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Leo, how about you? What are your impressions of the car?
So it was actually this is the car that got me into getting an MG. A friend of mine, Ken, who is on the forum, he turned up one day at a live event that we were doing in one. It only had 100 miles range or something like that, but I went, unbelievable. And it ticked all the boxes. I then went down the dealership to look and then saw the 5 and went, that's even better for me than that, and it worked, and that's how I chose the 5 through going to see it. Thought it was great, really good, particularly because I work in live events. You could put a lot of equipment in the boot, and I think that's the one thing that has been amazing. I have both with the pre-facelift and the facelift 5, I can really throw stuff in it, and saw exactly the same with this. That was where it came about.
Yeah, I must admit with the 4, the one compromises the boot, which isn't really big enough, but can't have everything, I guess. Okay, so some fond memories and thoughts there. And so, Miles, what's the current situation? Can you still buy a ZS EV, or if you are they completely gone, or are there a few kicking around, or what's
I think last check, I think there was about 6 left in the country that were unregistered. So I'm pretty sure they'll all be registered by now. The ZS, they've sold through all the existing stock because the new car, the MGS5, is due to land in dealerships within the next couple of weeks. So we should have demonstration and showroom vehicles. I thought week commencing the 14th, they should be hopefully registering a couple. I think they're getting 3 cars, so they're getting 1 trophy, one standard range SE, and then another trophy. So.
Right. Well, okay. So let's move on to talk about the new car. So first of all, I need to get the name right, because I remember when this car was rumored, and there was a rumor it was going to be called the S5, and various people said, "Oh, they can't call it that. Audi have a car called the S5." So what's the proper way of referring to the new car, so that we don't get sued by Audi?
Yeah, of course. So it's the MGS5. So in the same way as you call it the MG4, not just the 4. It's the MGS5, and MG is going to be using the S prefix or moniker, however you want to call it, to identify SUVs in their lineup.
So technically, it's the MGS5.
Yeah, in the same way as the MG4 is the MG4. So the MGS5. So we've got obviously the S5, we've got the HS, we've got the ZS previously. So S basically stands for SUV. So. So the MGS5 is built on the modular scalable platform that we saw on the MG4 and also on the Cyberster. Now this car is actually a bit longer than the MG4, so it's been stretched slightly in the wheelbase. It's it's about 6 inches longer. I think I've got them stats here. Actually, I can tell you what the actual dimensions are. So, refers to my notes. We've got so compared to the MG4, the wheelbase is 25 millimeters longer. So it's 2,730 millimeters wheelbase. The overall length of the car is about 20 centimeters longer. So it's quite a bit longer actually overall. That means it's got a bigger boot as well than the MG4. So it's got, whereas the MG4 is a 363 litre boot, the MGS5 EV is a 453 litre boot. And also the MGS5, it's got a 75 kilo roof load on the integrated silver finish roof bars. So both the SE and the Trophy get roof rails on this, which then you can fit your roof bars to for securing a roof load. So the So the MGS5, it feels bigger inside than the MGZS. It feels more spacious. I mean, my day-to-day driver.
Would that, Miles? Would that be because it's on a different platform, or why would we expect more space?
Yeah. So compared to the original ZS, obviously the original ZS had a platform which was designed to take things like a petrol gearbox and an exhaust system under the car and a fuel tank and so on. This has been derived from the same MG4 platform, so we've got like a skateboard, if you will, a bit like Tesla have, and that gives you a flatter floor through the vehicle. And what that means is that you've got more foot space, more space for interior things. Obviously, made the wheelbase a bit longer as well. So what we're seeing is that when you sit in the cabin, it's actually really quite spacious. I was saying my day-to-day driver is a Hyundai Ioniq 5. Which costs best part of sort of £48,000, and it's quite a chunky sort of SUV, hatchbacky sort of car. I would say that the MGS5 felt as spacious inside as my Ioniq 5 does, and actually, and this is the big surprise for people who've been driving, or previous MGs, I'd say the suspension in this is better than the Hyundai Ioniq 5 as well. So one of the things that people have pulled up MG on for, particularly with the ZS EV, was that they thought that it was very softly sprung and sort of leaned quite a bit around the corners and wasn't as dynamic.
Would you agree with that, Dave? Is that your experience? Sorry, to unmute.
Yeah, I would. It's quite a bouncy car around corners, and yes. But I'm not a hugely fast driver or aggressive driver, so it doesn't really bother me greatly. But I think if you were wanting to get performance out of the car, you would be hacked off of that.
You can't throw it around.
Yeah. So the suspension on this and everything is totally different. And I actually found, now I've not driven loads of MG4s for lots and lots of time, but I from my memory of driving the MG4, I found that it was more tendency to sort of break away slightly less grip in certain circumstances. I found the MGS5 handled sort of, should we say, potholy roads and rough surfaces and things like that much better than my memory of the MG4. Much better than my Ioniq 5.
It could in part be the tyres, because I had one that came with the original Chinese spec tyres on the 17-inch. Which people have said, particularly in the wet, and then certainly when you're cornering in the wet and applying the throttle, you can get it to step out a little bit, or it can feel a little bit slippery. But I've changed the tyres since I've got some all seasons now, which are much better. So that might be part of it. I would imagine it doesn't. It comes with some decent tyres, does it, Miles?
The Bridgestone tyres are fitted as standard.
Okay.
The MGS5, we drove it on motorways, drove it through a country park. We drove it, on normal A and B roads, threw it around some roundabouts. Now, it is rear-wheel drive, same as the MG4. So that's one of the benefits of the platform, is that you get to have rear-wheel drive. And that does give a slightly more dynamic driving experience compared to front-wheel drive cars, because the front wheels only have to steer; they don't have to try and apply traction at the same time. Right. And my Hyundai Ioniq 5 is rear-wheel drive, and I find that mine rolls a lot more around the corners, and also if you provoke it, mine steps the back end out quite easily, whereas the S5 seem very, very glued. One thing about my Ioniq 5 is, again, 210 brake horsepower. This in sport mode is 240, and so 0 to 60 in the MGS5 is
It's
6.5 seconds.
It's quick.
Yeah, 6.5 seconds, whereas my Hyundai Ioniq 5 is about 7.3. So not a drastic difference, but it certainly doesn't feel slow at all. And I think basically
by comparison, the MG4 is about 7.5 or 7.7. I think it's
yeah, unless you go, if you go for the extended,
quicker. Yeah.
if you go for the extended range, then you save it down to about a second, down to 7 seconds. But it's and obviously if you go for the X Power, then yeah, it's like 4.5. But no, the MGS5, I was very impressed with the drive of it, and obviously I'll do some more driving experience, and when I actually get the car in as a demonstrator, I'll do a full review then, and try to take it a lot more miles. But I was very impressed with the drive, and also the improvement they made to the what they call noise, vibration, harshness. You know, all the things that they're chasing with modern cars, which is try and make it so that the cars don't have as many rattles, don't have as many shakes, feel better inside, feel more premium, don't let as much road noise through, and they've improved all of that over the MG ZS EV.
And one of the changes I've seen, and I think this will particularly be of interest to Leo, is the new entertainment system. Because Leo, you've had various comments on the graphics and the quality of entertainment from MGEVs in the past.
So what's
different here?
So we've got 2 screens on the car. So similar to the MG4. So obviously on the MG4 you've got a smaller driver display, and then you've got a larger center display. The display on let me just get the measurements because I don't want to tell the lies.
A little bit bigger than the MG4, I think. It's a 12. It's a 12.
Yeah, so on the driver display it's gone to a 10.25-inch screen.
Yeah.
Which is about the size of the one on the center console of the MG4.
MG4. And
then the the MGS5 center screen is now 12.8 inches, which is again bigger than it's actually the biggest touchscreen they've fitted in an MG vehicle so far. So bigger than the one on the HS.
Have they made the icons any bigger, Miles? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, they have. So they've got.
They're very tiny in the MG4. Yeah, tiny.
Yeah. On the MG4, have you had the latest version of software update on the MG4? Because it's the later software that they put on. I think it's R40. Introduced some larger buttons on the infotainment system, so it made like big clunky buttons, which is quite useful.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's then been carried across to this. Now, one of the good things about the infotainment system in this car is that it now has wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay as standard, and also we've got a wireless mobile phone charger, which has been moved down into the center console. On that graphic that's just been put up by Stuart, you can see it's down next to the drive mode selector. It sits a lot lower down. Now that center console there is trimmed in suede, and it actually feels really premium. And the overall impression I had from that dashboard and from the seating position and everything was it felt an awful lot nicer. It felt slightly nicer even than the new MGHS plug-in hybrid that I drove recently.
Right. Okay. Well, let's pause there, Miles, for a sec. Get some reactions. So, what do you think, guys? What you're seeing in terms of the interior and the infotainment? Any views?
Well, the interior to me, I've only seen pictures of it. I haven't seen the car in the flesh, but it looks I don't know. You correct me if I'm wrong here, Miles, but it looks very, very similar to the facelift MG5. It looks the seating of that looks very, very similar. The center console looks similar to a degree.
I would say that the quality of the materials they've used has improved drastically.
The quality might be better, but they look very similar to me. The car looks very similar to the old outgoing MG5 facelift model, not the early one.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, no, it's very similar in terms of some of the layout of the obviously the center console things, but in terms of the actual fit and finish and the bits you touch,
better.
There isn't. You just can't find any hard plastic on it, So I mean, we've gone from MG has done this thing over the last few years, which is the same as what Kia and Hyundai did over the last few years, which is that they've they started making cars competitively priced, proved that they could do that all right, and then they've started to step up the quality. This internally, I was very impressed by this. And what I also like on this is that there's a mix of lighter grey in with darker grey, so it's not all just black, dark grey like we have in the MG4.
Yeah,
it's actually got
a lot less oppressive than the MG4. I mean, I don't dislike the MG4's interior. I've got one, but it is very dark.
Yeah, so it's a lot lighter on this, and it's got a light, very, very light grey headlining in the car as well, which again lifts the
Ooh.
interior.
Oh,
We've
that's
had
good.
a question.
good.
We've had a question in the chat on that, Miles. So, okay, where is the panoramic sunroof
Nah,
that
It is
some
not there.
people
that's not
miss
come.
that we didn't get
So-
with the MG4?
No, so they've not done
Either.
so they've not done a panoramic sunroof on this model. Now they could do, because one of the things that I was speaking to one of the guys from MG, who's in charge of product development, and he was saying that, he said, of course we could put a panoramic sunroof on it, and we could put all-wheel drive on it, because the platform supports that. He says the trouble is that you then get to the point with how much more are people willing to pay to get a
cost.
panoramic roof.
Cost.
Would people pay an extra £2,000 for the car for a panoramic roof, for example? Would they pay an extra £2,000 for all-wheel drive? One of the things to bear in mind is that this is not going to be only electric SUV in the MG lineup this year. This is the first one they've revealed this year, but by July we should be seeing the slightly larger S6 EV, or MGS6 as it will be called. And the
Is that going to
MGS
be like a mid-size SUV? Is that the idea?
So the idea is going to be, in terms of like the ZS to HS, is going to be MGS5 to MGS6 is going to be a bigger car, and that will be available with all-wheel drive. And it will be available with a panoramic roof, and the car that's based on is the IM LS6.
Amen. Yeah.
And the IM LS6 is available in China under the IM brand from SAIC. And in top spec, that's got 776 brake horsepower.
Right.
So
Okay, that makes sense. So we maybe possibly see it later on the MGS5, but
effectively
definitely coming on the MGS6.
Yeah, effectively on the idea that was basically that if the MGS6 comes out and it's going to be launched sub £40,000 to get under the tax bracket, effectively that means it's a very small step up from this MGS5 price wise.
Yeah.
So if you've got, if you're a case of, okay, well, the MG S5 at the moment, the trophy spec goes to 33,495. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, if you were going to, so let's say if we're going to put panoramic roof and all-wheel drive onto the S5, it end up as 37 grand. It might be the same price as what they're going to do the the S6 for. So
is that going to be a replacement for the HS, you think?
So the HS is going to be kept as the petrol and hybrid model.
They're not going with the electric one.
This is going to be instead of a electric HS.
Electric, right.
So
Okay,
so effectively moving to two different sort of lineups. Effectively, one which was electrified and one which is ice powered.
I had a feeling it might be.
Miles, you were talking about different brands on it. Do you see that they're gonna? This is an interesting argument. A lot of big brands will convert into two different brands, one for their premium, one for their not so premium. Can you see this happening in this environment? I mean, I know it's speculation.
So in Australia, they've just announced at the Most Show in Melbourne, I think it was, this last week.
Yeah, that was what led me. I saw the video of that, and they've got two different marks on the same set there.
Yeah. So on the launch, it's launched as the IM6 and the IM5.
Yep.
But and on the marketing material, they're referring to it as IM presented by MG. And in my conversation with MG at this at Gaydon last week, I basically said, you just take a gun and shoot yourself in the foot in the UK if you do that. Because the MG
You've got the wrong way round. It's the wrong way
round.
round.
The MG brand. The name in the UK.
Yeah.
The name.
So I think that the MG brand is going to be used in the UK because I don't think that. I think that trying to launch as IM, they might as well launch it as Yang Wang or whatever. There's no cachet in that at all. So they have to stick with MG.
That makes sense. Okay, I want to come back to, before we move on too much from the interior, I know we've got lots of other things to talk about with the car. There's a killer feature in the new infotainment, which is much trumpeted for people who have had issues with lane keep assist and other stuff. Miles, can you tell us what that is that you can now do?
Yeah. So it's got MG Pilot Custom Mode. So basically, what you do is you set up. So you go into the MG Pilot, and normally on a single trip type thing, you'd turn off the things that you don't want. So you say, okay, I don't want speed limit, or I don't want it to beep every time I go to the speed limit, or I don't want lane keep assist, or I only want the lane keep to be alerting, not to be auto swerving and things like that. And basically, what it does now is gives you a MG Pilot custom button at the top. So if you long press on that, it saves your settings, and then when next time you come into the car, by law it will default with all of them on, as it always does. But then you just do a swipe down on the top of the screen, press MG Pilot custom, and it will just go back to the save settings. So it's now it's a swipe and 2 button presses now to
That's good.
to go back to the settings you've saved.
That's excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
And
Ironically, they've actually made it so that the MG Pilot works really well now, so you don't really need it. But
Go on, Leo.
do you? Yeah, I mean, the question's going to come is, for us that already have a car or cars, are we going to see that retrospectively applied to our models so that we can have that sort of features?
this question was asked at the training, and the answer we got was that it will be put on with model improvements in the future. So if there's a refresh of the MG4 with a bigger later this year, there's going to be a refresh of the MG4. We're not getting that one that was shown in China, by the way. It'll still look like the current one, but it'll have a slightly different interior, bigger screens, etc., similar to the S5.
Come with a software update for your existing owner, but if you upgrade to a refresh of the MG4, for example, you should expect you might
now
see it.
if they technically can retrospectively add it to the other cars, obviously things like the Cyberster being the one that you'd be thinking of, then they will, but they've not committed to doing it for all the old models, because they say on some of the cars it's just not possible to do that because of the way that the system
any
sets
reason up. Right, got it. Any reason why there isn't just, I mean, the best system I've seen is the kind of Renault like, where it's a dedicated button and you just click it twice and you're set, you get your defaults. Any reason why they haven't done that specifically? So you still have to go into the touchscreen and select the
well, all you do is you swipe, you just swipe down from the top of the screen, click MG Pilot Custom, and then so it's a swipe and two presses. It doesn't take very long at all.
It's definitely an improvement. I've been commenting on the chat, and I personally I love a button, but I'll take this. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a button on the screen, Tom. It is a button on the top right of the screen. I've seen it.
I mean, if I would summarize everything we've talked about, which is where I think MG goes, every single revision of physical car that they bring out comes out better and better and better. And the hardware is always getting better. The problem, if I'm going to say it, is that the software that you get baked in when you buy it, it's the only car I know on the road that they don't ever seem to give you anything. You've had some on the MG4, agreed. My 5, my old 5, my Cyberster, I have nothing. It's like a desert to get an update.
I'm basically with the 4, a lot of it is due to when customers have obviously raised issues, like for example with the lane keep assist or things like that, or with the so that those or with incompatibility with Bluetooth and so on. So what I'll say is that MG is listening, to our feedback. They are trying to do things on board. Sometimes there may be technical particular reasons as to why certain software features that they've put in the latest cars aren't backwards compatible with the older hardware in the cars.
We saw that with one pedal on the MG4, didn't we?
Yeah. But no, all I'll say is that they've basically, the reason the S5's come out is that they've basically listened to all the feedback they had in the MG4, which they've sold a lot of, 30 or 40,000, I think they said they sold. So they've sold a lot of MG4s. They've had a lot of people giving feedback about that car, about the things that they like, things that they don't like so much, and they've improved on pretty much all the things that were raised.
And let's talk about that, because the next thing I want to mention is range. Because am I right? Not only is this faster than the MG4 equivalent model, it's also got longer range.
It does.
So, which normally I'd expect an SUV to be heavier and slower. And what's happening there?
So one of the things that they've done is actually they've reduced the weight slightly. So the actual car weighs about 80 kilos less than the MG4 somehow.
Really?
So even though it's a longer, bigger car, they've actually managed to reduce the weight slightly. They've apparently used.
Sorry, Matt. I was just going to say they've got basically the same size battery as what the facelifted MG5, outgoing MG5, the facelifted one has. 62.1, I think it is, 62.3 kilowatt. It's basically the same size, but it's got an extra 60 miles of range. I was just about to ask you that question. I can't understand where they've got 60 miles of range from. 80 kilos is not that much, is it?
80 kilos is just slightly less than me. 84 guys. One of the I've been on a diet. So what I would say is that they say they've used some new motors which have got apparently better freewheeling bearings in them. So that's improving the actual efficiency of the motor itself.
Okay.
Apart from that, I don't know. I guess
Massive jump up, that is.
yeah.
Great.
So if you get
what are
the
the
SE,
figures?
yes, if you get the SE standard range, it's 211 miles. If you get the SE, which is with a 49 kilowatt hour battery, if you get the 64 kilowatt hour battery, it's 298 miles in the SE and 288 if you get the trophy.
Are they both LFP now?
No, so the 49 kilowatt hours is LFP. The 64 is a lithium-ion tertiary, same as the ones that's in the MG4. The trophy has 18-inch wheels rather than 17-inch wheels, which accounts for some of the difference. I've driven both cars. So the first car I went out in was the SE. The second one I went out in was the trophy. To be honest, they both drove very well. The trophy did have slightly more power. I did take it onto a gravel car park and may have exuberantly turned round. Which was much to the disapproval of the lady who was officially from MG showing us around the car.
What can people expect that range to translate to the real world? Because we had a question earlier about this.
Right. So bearing in mind when we drove,
it's all very well to have the high level figures, but what does it mean?
When we drove the car, it was last week, so it was sunny, but it was about sort of 12 degrees and quite windy and cold. The people that I was sharing the test drive with all had right feet made out of lead. So it's perhaps not the fairest, expectation of what you would actually drive like. One of the challenges we had to do was to drive a route in about 35 minutes up the motorway, get to a charge point, quickly plug it in to show that it was charging, take a photo, come out, drive to a country park, get the vehicle to load, connector out the back, plug in a kettle, boil a kettle, a cup of tea, show that the tea bag's in there, take a photo, and then zoom back, sort of thing. So it was sort of against the clock, and we were driving spiritedly, but within the law, mostly. Not so much on the motorway. That wasn't me driving though. So the range we were getting, I think we were averaging something like 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour, which is about the same as what I'd managed to get in my Ioniq 5, on the same day. Having said that, do I think we'll be able to get a lot better in it? Yes. Yeah. So I think that when I take it out, obviously when we get the demonstrators in, my anticipation is that as long as there's not a hurricane, we will be able to see probably around sort of, in the longer range version, I'd say about probably 250 miles will be possible quite easily. And if you're doing city driving, it probably over 300. So,
Dave, what are you thinking about all of this? Looking at the car, the interior, the changes, it's looking pretty good to me. So
I do think it looks pretty good. I agree. The panoramic roof I do like, and that would be something I would have to think about, particularly if there's another version coming out with it. I would have to have a look and see. Certainly the softer plastics would be nice, because I don't really have a problem with the hard plastics, but there are times you think that's a wee bit down market-ish. So that would be nice, and you say the finish of the seats and the trim, etc. Miles is really very good. So it sounds really quite good. Bigger boots, that would be good as well. That would be handy. Golf club test would have to come into that, of course. But yeah, so it's really nothing I've heard of tonight is making me think, no, I'll go back to my Fisker Ocean.
Right. On the golf club question, is there a ski hatch or is it still 60-40 split only?
It's still a
No
60-40
ski
split. Yeah, still a 60-40 split. It does seem to fold flatter than it did previously. You've got two boot heights, as you were used to in the ZS EV. The top one making it so it's a flat load level from the boot floor, from the boot lip all the way through. When you fold down the back seats, there's quite a decent bit of storage under there. And actually, in the lower position, there's still a further storage area for it says tools. It's for like cables and that sort of thing that fits underneath the lower boot floor. So no, it's quite a decent amount of space really on in total. And I think that obviously the back of it, design wise, it looks very similar to the new HS. But yeah, with the seats folded down, as you can see on that photo that's been put up, really nice flat load level all the way through, which was something we didn't really have in the MG5, not in the first version at least.
No.
Didn't have that flat load level. So, and the seats, even when you fold them down, still sit at a bit of an angle, don't they, Les?
That looks good. That looks good. Now we've talked a bit about range, but not so much charging. Is it similar, faster charging? And I also have a question on the chat. MG seem to be quoting 10 to 80% instead of 20 to 80%. So why is that? And what are the figures there?
So normally we quote, car manufacturers usually don't quote from 0 to 80% because they don't expect to get down to 0. A lot of them will quote 20 to 80% because that's the only way they can get it under half an hour. MG has got slightly faster charging, so they quote from 10 to 80% because it's still under half an hour for both cars. With the bigger battery and the low. I'm just trying to get the actual figures. I think it's 136 kilowatts charge speed. I'm just going to look through my data.
Okay, that would be the same as the MG4 then. Which, if it's the same pack, kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
I think it was
does seem
slightly higher on the Cyberster, but that may have been the bigger pack. No?
Yeah.
Leo's shaking his head.
No, it's not much faster. It's not much.
So they're quoting 24 minutes and 29 minutes there from 10 to 80% on a 150 kilowatt charger. The lower pack, I think, maxes out 124 kilowatts, and the big one's 136. So it's a nice fast charge speed. Again, better than the ZS EV. The ZS EV, Dave, I think you get to about sort of 80, 90 from memory. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've did a battery check on the ZS EV, but I think that the larger pack was something about 70 or 80 kilowatts maximum, whereas so that was more sort of 40 odd minutes to get to 80% on the big pack. So the fact that it can charge faster is good. The fact that it's more efficient, I think, is good. Ultimately, as a Scotsman, Dave, and obviously I'm a Yorkshireman, so that's I'm not level pegging
Almost
you
as good.
there. Yeah, tighter than cramp. Yeah, a smaller pack which is more efficient is what you want. You don't want to be paying, particularly at rapid charge prices. You don't want to be paying, having to put in more kilowatt hours than you need.
That's true.
So if you can get more mileage for your per kilowatt hour, that's good news.
Well, that's great.
Is the AC charger any different miles? Is it 11 or 6 or what is it?
It'll still be 7 kilowatts in the UK.
Still 7, is it? Right, okay.
It always surprises me that they still put the cable storage underneath the boot space.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going away somewhere and you've got a set of golf clubs, 2 suitcases, whatever, you've got to take the whole lot out to get your cable. There's plenty of space in the front. I always wonder why they don't just put a little shelf or something in the front that would take the charger cable pack.
I mean, one thing it does have in the MGS5, I don't know if you can see it on those videos, is that it does have the like the netted pockets at the side, so that the sort of side above the wheel arch storage. So you can probably put the cables, sort of tuck them to the sides, I'd say, probably if you're doing a longer journey. I suppose the thought really for most people, Dave, is that if they're doing a longer journey like that, where they're going away and, go back, they'll probably be using rapid chargers that won't need the Type 2 cable.
Yeah.
So that's probably the sort of thinking behind that.
Now, is it too good to be true? We've had all these improvements, all these great things about the interior, the space, the performance, the range, etc. Are we going to be hit with a huge price tag?
So I think they priced it pretty competitively, to be fair. So let me just refresh my notes again, so I'm not saying anything else. So the SE standard range starts at 28,495, which is only sort of a couple of grand up from the MG4 really. And then you've got a £2,500 walk up to get the longer range battery on the SE. So that's 39.95. And then if you want to go from the SE to the Trophy, then it's another £2.5 and you get to 33,495. Now, with the, I'm just going to first the notes. So the Trophy over the SE, just to give you an idea of what you get, for the extra £2.5. So you get the 18-inch rotor-style alloy wheels rather than the 17-inch vector-style alloy wheels, both of which have aero wheel covers on them. You get rear privacy glass. You get electrically adjustable power folding heated black door mirrors, two-tone grey leather-style seats with cloth inserts on the upholstery. You get an electric driver's six-way adjustable seat with manual lumbar support. You get a rear centre armrest, which is not standard on the SE. You get rain-sensing wipers, 360-degree camera with front sensor, heated steering wheel and front seats, smart hands-free tailgate, so you get a power tailgate on this model. You get online services, which already comes with iSmart, but you also get things like YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, live travel and weather. So if you're stuck charging your car somewhere, and you can watch YouTube videos on there. It's got a 6-speaker audio system instead of 4, and you get the wireless phone charger, which you don't get on the SE. Having said that, the SE, you do actually get quite a bit of spec on. So you get MG Pilot with MG Pilot Customer Standard. You get LED headlamps and daytime running lights and rear lights. You get auto headlamps. You get the roof rails as standard. You get a rear parking camera with rear sensors. You get two-tone grey fabric upholstery, which has got the MG. It's got like an MG moniker going down the middle of the seat. In a sort of perforation. You get obviously the big screens on the center console with satellite navigation as standard. You get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and the 4 speakers. So the Trophy's got some nice to have, but actually the SE is not a poverty spec by any means. It's a nice car.
Yeah, sounds pretty good compared to what we had before.
Well, as I see, the driver's seat is electric again. The passenger seat, it says 4-way adjustable. What is 4-way?
4-way is so going forwards,
up and down.
Forwards and backwards, and then the backrest going up and down. So it's
just the backrest, so it's not the seat height won't alter.
No, that's the 6.
No, but the seat height would be different in this because it's a completely different platform to the old. It might well be different to the old ZS. You'd have to try it.
Yeah,
see if that was.
I've been actually keeping a stream going of whether I'm going to buy a driver's seat from a European ZS and fit it on the passenger side, so I've got the movement, etc. I've opened up some really interesting things. Somebody saying, but you're off center. I didn't realize that you're off center in the driver's seat in the MG ZS.
Yeah, so the trim's on the side of the seat, obviously. Yeah, are you off center? I don't know.
So somebody much more.
I would have thought the passenger seat and the passenger seat on both of them would be the same. To be fair, I can't imagine there's a left-hand drive, right-hand drive.
A foreign one would be off-center the other way, so it'll be every bit as convenient. Yeah, so it's not really a problem. But yeah, that's how far I've been getting hacked off with it.
I'm not sure about the wiring for the loom for the everything to get power for the motors if you're going for an electric passenger seat. I don't know if that would be all there. So manual passenger seat, which actually is the same again as my Ioniq 5. My Ioniq 5's got an electric driver's seat and a manual passenger seat. It just seems to be a way they go for a lot of cars nowadays. I suppose it's probably another cost-related issue.
With all these improvements, and the pricing sounds like it's still pretty keen to me. Maybe not as cheap as it was, but I guess you're getting more for your money, and the inflation and everything. What can people expect with reliability? So we've got a question in the chat about that. That some particularly with I'll say my MG4. I've had quite a few issues, hardware and software, all fixed now, and all software updates done now. But it's taken quite a while. Are MG improving in how they are handling the reliability and the predictability of whether you're going to get a good car or a bad car?
I mean, MG is putting a lot of money into improving their after sales. But they kind of had to. So what we've seen is that there's been massive investment in terms of their after-sales offering to dealers. They're able to support us better than they were before. There's better availability of parts. There's more technical help on as well. It's a part of the growing pains, I suppose, they've had in a company. When we took on the franchise in 2017, they were selling, 10,000 cars a year or less, and now they're selling close to 100,000. So it's they've grown massively as a company in a very short period of time. And part of that has been that some dealers have come on and then they've left, and some dealers have joined from other brands that have not been up to spec or up to speed on all of the models as quickly as they perhaps should have been. They're spending money on it. They're trying to make it so that it is going to be working. One thing I was going to just say about reliability, obviously we've all seen the JD Power survey and things like that where MGs come second from bottom. Part of the reasoning for that was software related. Well, a lot of it was software related. A lot of it's like software updates, software bugs, things where basically if a software update had been done by the dealer on PDI, probably wouldn't have had to come back into the workshop. And so there's been some feedback to MG about that as well, in terms of how we can sort of better manage that so that the experience for the drivers and the customers that get the cars is better from day one.
Okay, that's good to hear.
That's good.
So
That's good.
So you're convinced you're seeing more investment and focus on this. That's good to hear.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to say as well is that MG, we talk about pricing, just another thing to mention on pricing. There is currently some finance offers with just 2.9% APR on the finance. And if you are an existing MG owner and you have an MG4, MG5 or MGZS EV on finance, there's up to £2,250 deposit contribution available on the finance as well. So as an example, if you weren't an existing MG owner and you just go to get a PCP, the S5 starts, well, our offer is, to give an example, is 3,999, so £4,000 deposit, and that works as 309 per month on a PCP. With the same deposit, the long range version becomes 339 a month, and on the trophy it goes to 379 a month. So to give you sort of an idea of what that finance work looks like.
Those numbers sound pretty good, but Miles, a lot of people are suffering from low equity because of the decline in used EV prices. So they would probably find it difficult in that case to exit their existing arrangement early, if that was what they were looking at.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why there's this deposit contribution available. So, it's to assist with the equity position a little bit. Obviously, if you're £7,000 net in negative equity, then you're going to have to wait longer. You can't just put you'd have to find another £5,000 to put towards it, wouldn't you?
Towards it, yeah.
But again, this is when we talk about this, some people say, well, this is why I like buying cars for cash, because then you know how much it owes you, and you know where you stand financially. The other way to look at it is if you own it for cash and car prices have dropped, with a PCP you have got a worst case scenario. You can hand it back after your period. Worst case scenario, that guaranteed final value of 15, 16 grand, whatever it was.
Well, that's what I've got. My car
finance
is
company that ends
already
up taking a hit on that.
I've got a 4-year PCP, and my car is already worth less than the final amount, which means when I come to, I can either hand it back or I could offer to buy it for less than they would get at auction or whatever. I might be able to negotiate. But what it doesn't mean is I can't easily swap in the halfway through, which I might have done in the past. But it's not unique to MGs. I mean, this is something across the market with all EVs. And for second-hand buyers, it's great. It's fantastic.
And just talking about obviously the maintenance issues and things like that. So I don't know if I mentioned last time I came on that my wife's got a new Mini Cooper SE electric. Fantastic looking car, great build and everything. Feels really premium inside. So it was delayed on handover because they had to change the ICCU. So it was delayed by 2 months because they didn't have any in stock. And then she's got it, and today she received an email saying, please do not drive your vehicle any further. We're going to collect it on a flatbed tomorrow. We're going to exchange the car with the loan car in the meantime. We've identified that your car has a risk of the high voltage battery bursting into flames. And so we recommend you don't drive it, don't charge it. And if you're going to park it, don't park it in any buildings. Put it out in the open somewhere, and we'll come and get it as soon as possible. And literally, so they sent the email through, and then about half an hour later, got a phone call saying, "Yeah, so can we come pick up your car? You haven't parked. Where is it at the moment? You just okay. Well, if you just leave it out in the open, we'll come and get that tomorrow." So
terrible.
So I mean, that's worse
It's a
than
nightmare.
that's worse than some of the issues that MG has had.
Yeah,
So yeah, apparently
definitely
it's a fault that's been identified with when they were building the packs that may mean that there's a risk of short circuit or thermal runaway, which is not ideal.
That's not ideal at all. And it's a good reminder that as obviously we focus on MGs, but you can have problems with any new car from anyone.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. We got another question in the chat asking more broadly about people's experiences with charging infrastructure. So there must be quite a few people out there who haven't gone for an EV yet, who are thinking about going for an EV with these new waves or the new versions of second and third generation releases. What are people's experience about the public charging infrastructure?
Well, I mean, to give an idea, so when I drove down to Gaydon in Warwickshire for the training the other week, I went to my Ioniq 5. I got down, I didn't leave with a full charge, I left with about 90%. I got down to, I drove on the motorway at cruise control at 70-ish all the way down. I got down to the M40 where I was staying. There was a rapid charger on site. I chucked it on the rapid charger for, I think it was about 20 minutes, got it up to about 80%. Cost me about 37 quid, but apart from the cost element, it was fast, it was easy, it was easy to use. Next day, drove home, got back, no issue whatsoever. So the only issue I'd say at the moment with public rapid charging infrastructure is the cost. I feel that 10 times higher than what I'm paying off peak at home is just too high of a cost, really.
What about everybody else? What are your experiences? Do you agree, disagree?
I've never had a problem.
I mean, I'd say on the rapid chargers, exactly as Miles said, I'm a very happy user of the Electroverse card, and I've used it all around Europe and in the UK, and I use that all the time. On a non-rapid charger that a couple of weeks ago, I went to watch England versus Wales in Cardiff. I drove up there. I plugged into a non-rapid charger, parked the car, plugged it in, went off, had lunch, watched the rugby, had a dinner, came back, car was at 100%, and it was a 37 p.m. kilowatt. And that was great.
Yeah.
Happens while I was sitting there watching the rugby.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, you're well served in Scotland, aren't you, these days?
Yeah, getting better. Yes, I must admit, there's new sites popping up all over. Since last on, I've always been with Scottish Power, and they've introduced a nighttime rate as well. So I've got into the regime of, if I know I'm going somewhere specifically, I'll charge up to 100%. And as I said right at the start of the podcast, that gets me down to Edinburgh or Glasgow quite comfortably. Then I look for either a slow charge overnight or a rapid charge to get me back up the road. And yeah, I'm with Miles, some of the prices are staggering, 75, 80 pence, just shocking.
Yeah, some of them were stupid.
Mhm.
I have to say, I've never had a problem. I've only ever had one charger that's let me down in over 4 years now of driving EVs. I've only ever had that once when a charger let me down. There was nothing wrong with the car. It was the charger itself. Somebody must have lost the temper with it and smashed the plug on the end of the connector lead. And it was a tethered connector. There's nothing you could do about it. That's the only one I've ever found that's let me down. This last, what now? Getting on for 3 weeks now. I don't think I've spent a penny on electricity. Everything I have is happy charger, and I just plug it in.
I agree with you. I mean,
it just charges away all day long. It's never a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I charge for, much like Dave, I charge to 100% if I'm going anywhere long distance. And
if I'm going somewhere, I will.
Never failed to find a rapid charger and never had to queue. Although the only asterisk I'd put on that is I don't travel on bank holiday Fridays and Mondays.
Ah, well.
When you might have to.
I've got to do this time.
I agree with everybody. It's the price that's the main problem. Although even then, Tesla can be cheaper. You can get Electroverse and other cards can give you some discounts or various schemes. There's ways around it.
I had to smile about a month ago. I stopped at Pitlochry and they had some of the old style chargers, and I plugged in and it did that old thing. Do you remember the old thing where it remembers what it charged the last person to? It doesn't give you a charge, but it'll say your car is at 95%. and it's not. It's at 15. That's why you stopped at the charger. And I had a wee laugh to myself, and I thought, right, I know it's not good practice to emergency reset it. So I just went through the whole thing again, and bang, up it came nicely the second time. So
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay, so right, our hour has flown by, chaps. Just a couple of things to mention before we finish. First of all, some of you out there might be going to Everything Electric London. I strongly recommend going to the show. I went to the Farnborough one last year. It's fantastic. I got to meet Robert Llewellyn and see other people, and just a fantastic range of products and companies offering different services. Just generally, the talks and the meetings and gatherings and discussions were fantastic. So, Leo, you're going to be there, and you're going to be doing some recording. Tell us more.
That's the hope. I'm going to go there on the Thursday, the 17th, with the idea to try and see if I can record a few people from the MG stand just to say hello. I'd love to meet up with any other people on the forum and just generally try and have a chat and get some information and see where we can go. It'll be really good. It looks like it's an exciting show. Things are coming very nicely to the boil at the moment, I think, where we are with the EVs.
Fantastic. And our
sadly,
last
I
item.
can't go this year.
Oh, okay. Yes, I can't make the London one. But
I
should
can't go this
again
year. No, I went last year. We can't go this year.
I should go. Was that the North one? Is it Harrogate?
No, I went to London last year.
The London one.
Farnborough.
I did Harrogate. I didn't do Harrogate last year. I did London last year.
Right.
The first one they did is the XL. Is it called the XL?
Yes.
Where they have it? Yeah, it was okay.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay. Right. Last item then, chaps. There have been some changes to the zero EV emissions mandate. I think, Miles, you have some details. The government has listened to car makers.
Yeah, basically,
I think
just
you
to
better
cover it
put a date and a timestamp on this because it'll be changed by the time Miles has finished talking.
Change again this afternoon.
So the Transport Minister addressed Parliament today and said that basically they're just making some changes to the ZEV mandate. So the highline view is that whereas previously they were saying that they weren't going to allow any sales of petrol or diesel vehicles after 2030, they will allow hybrid and plug-in hybrid vehicles to be sold until 2035. The fines have been dropped, so rather than £15,000, it's now going to be a maximum £12,000, and there's also going to be some additional creative accountancy years where they're able to basically say, okay, so we've let's say this year they were supposed to get to 28% and they get to 26%. They can actually count forward from the next couple of years and bring it back down. So if they do an oversupply next year, and rather than 33% they get to 35%, for example, they can pull it back down so that they don't pay the fine in this year. So it's to give more flexibility to manufacturers who perhaps don't have their build cycles quite on track with where they need to be for the targets. One thing that is still true is that 80% of car sales in Europe need to be electric by 2030. So although there will be some hybrid vehicles available between 2030 and 2035, the idea is that there's going to be less than 20% of models will be of that type. Yeah. And I think some of the feedback, if you in that article that Stuart's just scrolling through, some quotes from people, in the media who are basically saying, realistically, by 2030, we ought to have moved on from hybrids. As a standard hybrid should be kind of passé, really, because there is better technology out there. I think that so this weekend I drove the Ioniq 5N again, and that's got one with the noise generator and sequential mock gearbox thing that it has. And I took one of my mates out in it, who's a rally driver, and he had a drive, and he was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" It's like, I mean, going through the gears, and good downshift, and it gives like spluttering exhaust and everything, and he fell for it completely. And he's like, "That's ridiculous power." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "You do realise it's completely lying to you. It's just got one gear, and it is fully electric." He's like, "Well, I don't like electric cars." I said, "Well, you were raving about this one a second ago." So literally, all they have to do is basically fart down the speakers and occasionally cough, and you're sold on it being like a normal petrol or diesel car. So I think that the technology is potentially there to win over some people who are dead set against EV. And realistically, I think that that for some people it is that oral feedback, AUR, oral feedback, which they miss from the from electric cars. And if that's what's needed, I'm sure there'll be people that can code them in. I know people with the Ioniq 5N who've upgraded the speaker and the amplifier so it sounds louder on the outside and things like that. So it's I suppose you can't put a sports exhaust in your car. You can tune it in that sense, but
I'm sure people will do lots of things as it becomes more.
Yeah, so I think that realistically, we're going to a point where the market's going to end up there anyway. If, like I've said before, if the government had said you have to have a mobile phone, people would have fought against it. But every bugger has got a mobile phone. In fact, some people have got two. So
I think one of the things.
There we go.
I was going to say one of the things that I think is quite interesting on this is that they've relaxed some of the rules for some of the, I'm going to call it premium cars.
Yeah.
And the premium manufacturers. And the reason I think that's really important is that some of those premium manufacturers will actually want to source their components. So, for example, their battery packs in the UK or outside of certain other areas. And that manufacturing isn't on stream yet. So that's where it's going to be quite interesting. If you want to source, if you look at it at the moment, if you source a battery pack in the UK, it's so much more expensive than is sourcing it in China, for example. So they're going to want to get to the point when they say this is a premium product that we put premium products to, however you want to say it. But they're not going to then go to turn around and say, well, it's going to spend all of its life in the garage. But maybe that's exactly what Lotus.
They've named today. They've named Aston Martin, McLaren, and Lotus. You'll still be able to buy them after 2030.
There we go.
Yeah, but they will still be. They'll still move to electric, but they'll want to phase them in with different parts. That's why
we could talk all night long, and but I'm sure we all have other things we could be doing, as do our audience. So I'm going to call it to a close. All good points. Remember, folks, you can influence what we cover on the podcast there's a poll that's on the forums which we look at to decide what kind of topics to cover. So please have a look at that. There's a link in the video description, and please reply in that podcast thread with the things you'd like to see. You can also find the audio version of this podcast on all good podcast providers. Just search for MGEVs Community Podcast. That's it for us tonight. Many thanks to our volunteer moderators who keep the forums running smoothly, Olb, Coulomb, Rolf, and MG Clive. And many thanks from Stuart to the podcasters who dedicate their time to share their wisdom with the community. My personal thanks to all of you, to David Stewart, Les Burrows, Vince, who didn't make it tonight. So I won't say thank you to Vince. Hopefully Vince is all right. And thanks to Leo Mindell and Miles Roberts. If you found this podcast useful, please click on the like button. Also, if you subscribe and click the notification bell, you will get notified next time we go live, which is particularly useful if we change the day at the last minute. It just remains for us all to say goodbye to you. Cheerio.
Goodbye.